Let me ask you, how many women do you know who stay in relationships out of fear, not love? Now think about that one friend who lives alone, travels when she wants, decorates her home exactly the way she loves, and goes to bed with a peaceful heart every single night. Who's really winning here? The truth about women who live alone without a man is that they have reclaimed a type of freedom most people don't even dare to dream of. They aren't waiting for someone to choose them. They already chose themselves. And when you choose yourself, you stop tolerating half-loves and bare minimum energy. These women know what it means to walk into an empty apartment and not feel empty inside. They know how to turn solitude into a sanctuary instead of a prison. You see, they've mastered the art of their own company, which is the highest form of emotional intelligence you can have. And here's the real kicker. When a woman knows she doesn't need a man, any man who does enter her life has to actually add value, not just fill a void. That's why these women hold higher standards and don't just fall for the first sweet talker who shows up. They've learned to spot energy drainers from a mile away. They've also built fierce friendships, explored secret passions, and cultivated a relationship with themselves that is unshakable. And that's intimidating for some, because we're conditioned to believe a woman's life is defined by a partner. But she's rewriting that entire book, page by page. We've been sold this idea that a woman who lives alone must be sad, desperate, or incomplete. But what if the opposite is true? What if she's actually the most powerful version of herself? Freedom of self-definition is one of the most underrated yet powerful gifts a woman unlocks when she decides to live alone without a man. From the moment we're born, society starts handing us scripts, how to behave, who to love, what to wear, even how to think. Women in particular are handed an even heavier script, that their value is tied to being chosen, partnered, or married. But when a woman steps into a life where she lives alone, she tears up that old script. She gets to define herself on her own terms, without the constant background noise of someone else's expectations or judgments. She can choose to decorate her space exactly as she wants, fill it with wild colors, soft textures, or total minimalism, without compromising for anyone's taste. She can decide what time she wakes up, what she eats, what music she dances to at 2 a.m., and how she spends her precious hours. In those moments, she starts to build a relationship with herself that is not influenced by needing to please or accommodate another person. This freedom allows her to explore passions she might have suppressed. Maybe she picks up painting again, starts a business, travels solo, or learns to play an instrument. Every choice becomes an act of self-expression instead of negotiation. When she lives alone, she learns that her worth doesn't rise or fall based on whether someone else validates her. She doesn't have to shrink or mold herself to fit into a box labeled girlfriend or wife. Instead, she can expand fully, discover parts of her personality she didn't even know existed, and embrace all her contradictions and quirks without fear of rejection. In that space, she realizes she is not an incomplete puzzle piece waiting for another to make her whole. She is already whole, already worthy, and already enough, just as she is. Radical self-reliance is something most people talk about, but few actually experience. When a woman lives alone without a man, she is forced to develop a deep, unwavering trust in her own abilities. There's no one to lean on when the sink breaks, or the bills pile up, or when she's having an emotional breakdown at midnight. She becomes her own hero, her own problem solver, her own comforter. This might sound overwhelming at first, but it's exactly what makes her unstoppable. She learns to handle everything from changing a light bulb to making big life decisions without seeking constant reassurance. Each small act of independence builds her inner strength brick by brick. She becomes resourceful in ways she never imagined because she knows no one else is coming to save her. This makes her sharper, more adaptable, and more resilient. Financially, she learns to budget, invest, and make choices that protect her future. She starts to prioritize her own dreams and ambitions instead of compromising them to fit someone else's plans. She can decide to splurge on that solo vacation or save up for a new business venture because she's in charge of her own resources. Emotionally, she realizes she doesn't need someone else to validate her feelings or make her feel safe. She finds comfort in her own company and starts to understand her emotions on a much deeper level. People might say she's too independent, but that's usually code for too powerful to control. When a woman builds this radical self-reliance, she sets new standards for herself and anyone who wants to come into her life. She knows she can survive on her own, so any future relationship must bring true value and partnership rather than dependency or rescue fantasies. In this way, living alone doesn't just strengthen her, it completely transforms her into the most authentic, unbreakable version of herself. Deeper emotional awareness is one of the most profound transformations a woman experiences when she lives alone without a man. When you're constantly surrounded by others, whether it's a partner, family, or roommates, it's easy to distract yourself from your own feelings. You can blame your mood on someone else, seek comfort in another person's presence, or avoid looking too closely at what's really going on inside you. But when you live alone, there's nowhere to hide. You hear your own thoughts echoing back to you in the silence of your space, and that can be both terrifying and beautiful. Living alone forces you to face every emotion head-on. If you feel lonely, you can't just bury it under busy social plans or a partner's affection. You have to sit with it, understand where it comes from, and learn how to comfort yourself. This process is where true emotional growth happens. You begin to notice your triggers, the stories you tell yourself and the wounds you've carried for years without realizing it. You start to identify what you actually need rather than what you've been told you should want. Over time, this practice of self-exploration helps you develop an unshakable emotional stability. You become less reactive because you've already done the deep work of understanding your feelings. You learn to love your own company, and you no longer rely on someone else to fill emotional voids. This depth of self-acknowledge also transforms how you show up in relationships. You become more honest, more open, and more selective about who you let into your emotional world. You no longer look for a partner to fix or complete you. Instead, you look for someone who can meet you on the same level of emotional maturity and self-awareness. In this way, living alone becomes not an act of isolation, but a sacred journey into your own heart. A journey that makes you stronger, wiser, and far more at peace with who you truly are. Higher standards in relationships naturally emerge when a woman learns to live alone and genuinely enjoy it. When she discovers how to create her own joy, handle her challenges, and build a life that feels rich and meaningful on her own, her mindset around love completely transforms. Suddenly, she realizes she doesn't need a relationship to complete her or to fill her time. She wants one that adds to her already beautiful life. This changes the entire energy she brings to dating. Instead of anxiously wondering if she's enough for someone or if they'll choose her, she starts to ask, do they deserve a place in my life? Do they elevate my happiness or drain it? Her questions become sharper, her boundaries clearer. She no longer tolerates breadcrumb communication, half-hearted effort, or hot and cold behavior because she knows exactly how good her life already feels without that chaos. If someone wants to be part of her world, they need to bring consistency, respect, and genuine emotional availability. She's not looking for someone to rescue her from loneliness, because she doesn't experience her solitude as an emptiness to be fixed. She sees it as a sanctuary she fiercely protects. This kind of woman often surprises people because she can walk away from connections that don't serve her, even if she feels a strong pull. She knows chemistry alone isn't enough. She looks for compatibility in values, life vision, and emotional depth. She values her time and energy like precious treasures, and she doesn't hand them over lightly. When a woman raises her standards like this, she actually attracts higher quality partners. The people who approach her know they can't offer surface level charm or temporary affection. They have to show up fully, because she's already whole. Her higher standards are not walls to keep love out. They are gates to protect the sacred life she has built, ensuring that only those who truly align with her self-respect and vision are allowed in. Stronger friendships and social circles become a beautiful byproduct of a woman living alone without a man. When she isn't constantly focused on keeping a romantic relationship afloat or centering her life around one person's needs, she has space, mental, emotional, and physical, to nurture deeper connections with the people she genuinely enjoys. Instead of relying on a partner for all her emotional support, she starts to value the richness of platonic love. She learns to call her best friend when she's sad, celebrate big wins with her chosen family, and spend long afternoons lost in meaningful conversations over coffee or wine. These friendships often become stronger than ever because she's fully present, not half distracted by relationship drama or the pressure to perform as a perfect partner. She might also find herself exploring new circles, joining book clubs, taking art classes, traveling with groups of inspiring women, or attending events she used to skip because they didn't fit into the relationship schedule. Through these new experiences, she discovers people who match her energy, challenge her perspectives, and inspire her to keep growing. Without a partner to default to, she learns to make plans on her own, and those plans often include other vibrant souls who share her interests and passions. Instead of one person becoming her whole emotional anchor, she builds a wide net of support and love. She realizes that intimacy doesn't have to be romantic to be fulfilling. True connection can come from a friend who shows up at 2 a.m. when she needs to talk, a mentor who pushes her to grow, or a friend group that celebrates her wins as if they were their own. Living alone helps her understand that love is not limited to romance. It's everywhere if she's open to seeing it. She experiences community in a more authentic, diverse, and enriching way, making her social life feel more like a garden she joyfully cultivates rather than a backup plan when a partner isn't available. Society's stigma versus inner truth is a powerful tension that every woman who lives alone without a man must confront. From childhood, we're surrounded by messages that tell us a woman who is single, especially one who lives alone, is somehow incomplete, lonely, or even to be pitied. Movies, family gatherings, and even well-meaning friends reinforce this idea that a woman's ultimate goal is to find a man, settle down, and build her identity around that relationship. When a woman chooses to live alone, she becomes a direct challenge to that narrative. She decides that her worth doesn't depend on who she's with, but on who she is when she's fully herself. In the quiet moments alone in her home, she realizes she is not missing anything. She is experiencing herself in her most authentic form. She begins to uncover parts of her personality that were hidden or muted when she felt the need to fit into someone else's life plan. This inner truth is often so powerful that it shifts her entire worldview. Instead of feeling sorry for herself on a Friday night alone, she feels excitement at the freedom to do exactly what she wants. Instead of fearing waking up in an empty bed, she wakes up grateful for the peace, the lack of compromise, and the pure sovereignty she has over her morning. Meanwhile, the outside world may continue to project its judgments, making comments like, when are you going to settle down? Or aren't you worried about ending up alone? But she knows that being alone does not mean being lonely. In fact, some of the loneliest people are those trapped in relationships that drain their soul. The woman who lives alone knows her inner truth deeply. She knows she is whole, powerful, and capable of creating a fulfilling life without external validation. Every choice she makes comes from a place of self-respect, not social expectation. By living alone and embracing it, she becomes living proof that true fulfillment is an inside job, and that the loudest critics are often the most disconnected from their own sense of self. Spiritual and personal growth flourish in extraordinary ways when a woman lives alone without a man. For perhaps the first time, she has uninterrupted space to listen to her own inner voice, not her parents' expectations, not her partner's needs, not society's endless demands. She starts to explore what genuinely lights her up, not what she was taught should make her happy. Maybe she finds herself drawn to meditation or yoga, or maybe she finally gives herself permission to dive into painting, writing, or starting a passion project that had been buried for years. Living alone creates a sanctuary where she can experiment without judgment. She can fail privately, try new things, and evolve without having to explain herself to anyone. She doesn't have to apologize for changing her mind or pivoting her life's direction. She simply follows her intuition wherever it leads. This journey inward often sparks a spiritual awakening, a realization that her worth is inherent, not tied to anyone's approval. She begins to understand that happiness is not something handed to her by a partner or relationship status, but something she crafts day by day through her own choices and mindset. She discovers the power of rituals, morning coffee on the balcony while journaling, evening walks to clear her mind, or cooking meals that nourish her soul as much as her body. These small practices build a deep connection to her spirit and cultivate a sense of groundedness that can't be shaken by external events. As she continues to grow, she often finds herself feeling more alive and vibrant than she ever did while trying to mold herself for someone else. She connects more deeply to her body, her dreams, and her sense of purpose. And through this, she realizes she is not just surviving on her own. She is thriving, expanding, and becoming the truest version of herself. Without needing to compromise her essence for love or validation, she steps fully into her own power, creating a life that feels rich, meaningful, and uniquely hers. Rewriting the narrative on neediness is one of the most liberating shifts a woman experiences when she lives alone without a man. From a young age, many women are taught that needing someone is romantic, that being completed by another person is the ultimate goal, and that wanting love and support somehow makes them weak. But when a woman lives alone and learns to depend on herself, she begins to understand that real strength lies in choosing rather than needing. She no longer sees her desire for connection as something that defines her or makes her desperate. Instead, she learns that love is a beautiful addition to her life, not a lifeline. This distinction is huge. When you need someone to validate your worth or fill your emotional gaps, you give away your power. You make decisions out of fear. Fear of being alone. Fear of being enough. But when you choose someone from a place of wholeness, it becomes an act of power, not survival. Living alone forces her to face her own emotions, handle her own problems, and celebrate her own successes, without leaning on a partner for constant reassurance. She learns to soothe her own fears, create her own joy, and stand firmly on her own 2 feet. Over time, this builds a rock-solid self-confidence that radiates in every area of her life. When she does enter a relationship, she brings her whole self, rather than half a self looking for completion. She doesn't cling or lose herself in someone else's world because she has already built her own. This is why she becomes so magnetic. She's not afraid to walk away from something that doesn't honor her, and she doesn't shrink herself to keep someone close. By rewriting the narrative on neediness, she transforms the idea of love from a desperate necessity into a conscious, empowered choice. She proves to herself and to the world that she is enough on her own, and that anyone she allows into her life is there because she wants them, not because she needs them to survive. So here's the real truth no one tells you about women who live alone without a man. They are not waiting, they are not broken, and they are not missing out on some magical piece that will finally make them whole. They are designing lives that feel deeply authentic, choosing freedom over comfort, growth over approval, and self-love over silent compromise. These women become architects of their own worlds, creating spaces and routines that reflect their true desires. They master self-reliance, build rich emotional awareness, set uncompromising standards, and form friendships that nourish them on a soul level. They face down society's outdated narratives with quiet defiance, transform solitude into sacred self-discovery, and rewrite the old script about what it means to need versus to choose. When you see a woman thriving on her own, don't pity her. Don't wonder when she'll finally settle down. Realize that she has already settled into the deepest, most important relationship of her life, the one with herself. And when she finally invites someone into that world, it's not out of desperation or fear of loneliness. It's because she wants to share her joy, not outsource it. A woman who can stand fully alone is the most powerful kind of partner you will ever meet, because she knows exactly who she is and what she deserves. She doesn't just love differently, she lives differently. And in that difference, she sets herself free.